Good evening, everyone. Good afternoon and good morning to everyone, depending on where and what time we are connecting to this meeting. We are extremely delighted to have you here. Welcome to the Triple Helix Nigeria Webinar Series 3 on the Vision 10-10-10-10. The theme of today's webinar series is unlocking funding opportunities for research and innovation in Africa. And we're really excited that you could find time to join us. I know we had a lot of people registered for this event, and we have people from the academia, from the industry, and from the government here represented today. And we are very glad and delighted that you are here to join this event. So for this event, we have an array of very well experienced people, panelists, keynote speaker, and moderators that will be talking about this theme and throwing more light on how we can indeed unlock the funding opportunities for research and innovation in Nigeria. I know that it's one of the key areas. If you do a survey and ask most researchers in Nigeria and say, what's the biggest challenge we have regarding conducting research in Africa, in Nigeria, and I believe also by extension in Africa, a lot of them will talk about funding, and funding is a key thing. Funding sometimes constitutes, some will say, about 60% or 40%, but usually well above 50% of the challenges of conducting research in Nigeria. So I think there wouldn't have been a better time than now to have us talk about this topic. And we have, like I mentioned earlier, an array of very well experienced panelists who will be speaking into this, and the keynote speaker and moderator facilitate this session for us. So before we run straight into the event, I want to just run through a few opening modalities. We welcome you once again for this session. The Triple Helix Association Nigeria chapter actually was inaugurated in Nigeria in December last year. And since then, we have been driving our vision, which is the Vision 10-10-10. And Vision 10-10-10 simply means getting 10 universities to get 10% equity in at least 10 listed companies in 10 years. That is where the 10-10-10-10 came from. And then when we started this, we actually started with the very first webinar series in April early this year. And we had people talk around operationalizing the third mission of universities using the Triple Helix model. And the third mission of the universities, we know, as we all know, is focused on innovation and using the Triple Helix model and how it can birth sustainable development. We had people deal with this, and we also shared the output, I think, on social media and our LinkedIn pages. So for those of you that are not following Triple Helix Nigeria, now is the time to do so, because we have, I think, the communique and the YouTube, the video, the recordings also shared. Then we proceeded to webinar series 2, where we looked at the dynamics of innovation ecosystem and how the Triple Helix model can be leveraged to drive corporate innovation. And again, we had an array of erudite speakers, deliver and talk much on this topic. Now, for today, we are moving on to series 3. And like I mentioned earlier, series 3 is going to look into how we can indeed unlock funding opportunities for research and innovation in Africa. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, we welcome you to this webinar, Triple Helix Nigeria webinar series on Vision 10-10-10-10. So let me run through the agenda of what we have for you today. We will run through, I've begun the opening formalities, and then we'll have the opening remark that will be taken by the president of the chapter that is ably represented because he's not able to join in at this time. And then we'll move on to the keynote speaker who will be dwelling much deeper into the topic. And then we'll have the panel session and Q&A session, all facilitated by our moderator. I will be introducing them very shortly. And then after that, we'll go into the closing remarks that will be taken by the Vice President Innovation, Triple Helix Nigeria. And he would also be introducing the topic for webinar series 4. So on that note, we will dive through to the opening remark. But before we do that, I would want to run very quickly other than the Director of Research Planning and Statistics of the NCDMB, Mr. Abdulmalik Halilu. But for today, he will and is ably represented by Dr. Sarah Winnie, who is the Assistant Director, Training and Head Linkage and Exchange and Partnership of the Petroleum Training Institute, Nigeria. So to quickly cherry pick on his profile, Mr. Abdulmalik, like I mentioned, is a GM Research, Statistics and Development of NCDMB, and in his role, he's actually responsible for overseeing the implementation of the board's research, statistics and development efforts across Nigeria. He is a policy development expert and holds a master's degrees in management sciences and a Bachelor of Technology degree in agricultural technology. He is a fellow of the Nigerian Institute of Management, chartered fellow, and a certified project management professional and a member of the Kaduna Golf Club. He's happily married with children. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together and give a virtual applause to the chapter Triple Helix Association Nigeria chapter president, Mr. Abdulmalik Halilu, and welcome him on stage, who is now represented by Dr. Sarah for the opening remark. Put your hands together as we welcome Dr. Sarah Winnie for the opening remark. Thank you very much. Over to you, Dr. Sarah.
Thank you very much, Tomberry. I want to first of all send the apologies that Tomberry has done that of the president, Triple Helix Nigeria, Mr. Abdulmalik Halilu, who is attending to very crucial national matters. And there's no way he could have connected now. So he had asked me to represent him, which I'm very delighted to do. So I want to, on his behalf, welcome everyone who is here today, especially our panelists. Thank you for accepting our invitation to speak in this event. So talking about today's topic, unlocking funding opportunities for research and innovation in Africa. This is a very, very important topic. And as we all know, we have really a research deficit in Africa. When you look at the issues we have as a continent, most of the technologies that we use in Africa, technologies that were not, originated by Africans. When you want to check in terms of endowments, in terms of expertise in technology, Africans are well endowed. But one of the challenges we're having and experiencing, especially among the academia who actually take research as one of the things they need to advance their career, you see that there is a gross deficit in funding opportunities. So we need to look into that. And I believe today, at the end of today, we will be getting solutions from our panelists on how we will drive research and innovation forward in Africa. About Triple Helix, Tomberry, thank you for taking us back memory lane from the inauguration last year, the inaugural webinar session, and now we are in the third one, and I think we're making fantastic progress as a chapter. So to be the global relevance on Triple Helix knowledge for scholars, practitioners, and policymakers regarding the network and interaction between university, industry, and government. And now these are the components that make up the Triple Helix model. The interactions between these three sectors is being studied, and also opportunities on how collaboration, shared knowledge, partnership can be leveraged upon to boost research and innovation. Thankfully, Triple Helix Association is not new. It's operating in 6 regions across the world. So as a vision for the Nigeria chapter, we're looking at the vision 10-10-10, which is getting 10 universities to have at least 10 equity in 10 listed companies in the next 10 years. You will agree with me that economies of nations are boosted by SMEs, not even the big multinationals. And that is why when you can get these universities to get 10% equity in listed companies, you will agree with me that funding becomes a non-issue. Because most universities outside our region here are self-funded. There are projects going on, they're getting royalties through their patented work. They don't need so much funds, as it were, from governments to get their research output out there. So our mission as Triple Helix Nigeria is to accelerate the democratization and commercialization of innovations in research-oriented institutions. There was a time we tried to look into researches that have been carried out in, we're still doing that anyway, in our universities. Whether we like it or not, every year students will do projects, undergraduate, postgraduate, even at PhD level. Projects are done every year. But as a nation and as a continent, have we asked ourselves, how can we take this beyond the shelves of our academic institutions, commercialize this research output to get value? Right now, let me say what we do here in Petroleum Training Institute. In our departments, we're customizing our researches to be solution driven. Any research that is not related to the oil and gas or environment is not welcomed. So that is making our staff and students, work harder. But one of the challenges we're having is getting the right infrastructure to deliver some of this research. And you see that many times we take samples outside to labs and money is gobbled by these laboratories. So if the funding is available, every equipment infrastructure that is needed for research will be deployed, the output will be commercialized, and then there will be advancement in our nation and continent and the ultimate. So the big question that we want to ask ourselves today, ideal research and innovation, we're looking at how do we fund research. So we look at, there's a government side. Of course, without the government, government, basically what they do is making sure there's social good. But many times you see governments invest in a lot of projects, money is spent and no value is created. But when it comes to the industry is solution driven. They want to make profit. So if they're investing anything in research, it has to have a value that they can harness and make profit from. But for the academia, you just want to churn out information, churn out knowledge. Many times commercialization is not really the agenda. So that's why the Triple Helix Nigeria is looking towards creating entrepreneurial universities or making our universities entrepreneurial in their thinking and in their aims and objectives. So you have the government's policy there to support the market to technology maturity. So you go from the research, development, democratization, market formation, and then diffusion. So you have the technology push also, grants are needed, venture capital, private equity, debt finance, institutional investment, even the institution, there has to be, because most schools will be saying no funding. But as an institution, what are you doing? It doesn't matter, no matter how small, every institution should also be seen to be putting something aside to fund research. So we believe today's webinar will provide an invaluable opportunity for us to gain insights and practical knowledge from our seasoned professional here seated. I celebrate all of you with global experience to identify and understand and exploit possible options for accessing funding for research and innovation. Also, information is key. What are the funding opportunities available there? Our institutions need to know. So we need to bring all that to the table, dissect them, share knowledge, and ensure things move. So Triple Helix Nigeria, specifically interested in identify how these options could be instrumental in realizing the expected outcomes with that comes with our vision, which is the Vision 10-10-10, as earlier explained. So thank you so much for listening to me. Once again, I apologize on behalf of our president, Abdulmalik Halilu, for not being available. So thank you very much. I hope we have a wonderful day today. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Dr. Sarah. Please let's give her a virtual round of applause. Thank you so very much, Dr. Sarah. Really very well said, making our universities entrepreneurial. Thank you so very much. And indeed, Triple Helix Association Nigeria chapter wants to be at the forefront of driving this. Thank you so very much for that beautiful and very well crafted opening remark. So on that note, we'll delve a little deeper into the topic for today. And what we have next on our agenda will be our keynote speaker. And I'll briefly introduce her. Like Dr. Sarah mentioned, we have other professionals on the panel that will sit. I will be introducing them subsequently. I will just want to quickly introduce our keynote speaker, who will be taking us a little bit further into these funding opportunities. I'll quickly run through a brief on her biography. So Dr. Heba Labib is the Director, Innovation, Entrepreneurship and Competitiveness Center, Nile University, Egypt. Oh, I did mention at the beginning of the meeting, we have people joining us from across Africa because this is a problem that actually cuts through Africa. So she also leads the Nilepreneurs, a nationwide initiative supporting startups and SMEs through capacity building and incubation. And it's really, really very worthy of note to note that under her direction, Nilepreneurs has assisted over 270 startups, 700 SMEs, and trained 12,000 individuals. I mean, who else should we be listening to than someone who has been able to lead all these beautiful, wonderful accomplishments? Now, her achievements have garnered recognition, including being named one of Egypt's top 50 influential women in 2022. She was also honored as a top female entrepreneurial leader in Africa at the Triple E Awards in Barcelona 2023. Along that, she also received awards like the Arab Business Challenge in UAE 2007. She also has received Business and Development Challenge Awards, Netherlands 2006, and the Shell Interlaga for Best Business Idea in Oman in 2005. She holds a BSc degree in Mechanical Engineering from Oakland University and an MSc and PhD in Management of Technology from the Nile University. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me and put your hands together as we welcome onto the virtual podium Dr. Heba Labib, who will be delving deeper into the theme of this webinar series. Dr. Heba, the floor is yours. You're welcome. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for this invitation. I really feel honored to be among such a prestigious panel. And I'd like to present Nile University and tell the story of a young and an entrepreneurial university. So Nile University is only 16 years old. We were inaugurated in 2007. We do not have that long history, so we cannot brag about having a big, rich history. We're very young, but we brag about being very young and modern in our ways. We also are a very small university, about 4,000 students, so we cannot brag about having a huge size. Accordingly, we brag about being very agile, very flexible, and being capable to cater for Egypt, since our doors are open for innovators nationwide. So Nile University was originally conceived with a vision of creating a positive economic impact through technological innovation and knowledge transfer. That's when it was very first started back in 2007. And we lived up to our word or our own vision. And just 4 years later, we're hitting the ground running, becoming one of the top research universities in Egypt, if not the top research university. We had started off as a postgraduate university prior to starting our undergrads, and we have had a one-of-a-kind program, which is Management of Technology. And actually, that had been the flagship program for the university, shaping the university vision and leading the university to be an entrepreneurial university. So as a matter of fact, if we look at the pillars of the university, it starts with education. I mean, it's the raison d'etre, reason of existence of the university, the education part. And then the second pillar is research, because when we first started, we saw ourselves as a research university. But as we evolved, our third pillar, becoming entrepreneurial, has become our motto of being an entrepreneurial university, which leads to the fourth pillar, which is being engaged with the community engagement. And being an entrepreneurial university, we do have a set of goals to fulfill. One of them is instill and exploit the entrepreneurship towards the Egyptian economy and that of the region. The second goal is enhancing the competitiveness of industry. And we do that through a lot of work on innovation and being really engaged with the industry and trying to qualify the industry to live to international competition. And the third goal, it aligns with our academic and research fabric, where we want to integrate the innovation and entrepreneurship to be part of our studies and part of our research, to be about innovation and entrepreneurship, to understand more the dynamics of these two issues within our region specifically. And for that, we have our EPIC Center, the Entrepreneurship, Professional Services, and Innovation Center, which is the rebranding of the IECC. And being EPIC, we want to be talking about shaping from the idea to the success story. And this is the range of services that we provide, and I'll be going through that. And along with our EPIC Center, we have one of a kind, or one of the biggest initiatives of entrepreneurship in Nilpreneurs, which is a strategic partnership with the central bank to support these entities, the startups and SMEs, and young men and women supporting them through providing a series of activities. And of course, we could not have done that without having strong partnerships, local and international. And it actually resonates with the topic of this session, which is about funding. So many of our partners are sponsoring our activities or integrating with us in order to provide jointly in-kind services to enhance our offerings. So part of the offering that we provide to the industry is sponsored by a series of banks or government institutions, and part of it we leverage on being in close partnership with other entities such as export councils, other universities, and NGOs in Egypt. And so we talk about so what sort of activities do we offer? So we have tried to gather the activities into certain value offerings. So Nilpreneurs Professionals actually provides the capacity building in technical and non-technical upskilling projects to young men and women. And for that, we have managed to reach about 13,000 young men and women, providing them with a series of capacity building workshops covering entrepreneurship, business development, software development, embedded systems, product design, product development, design for manufacturability, design and manufacturing, you name it. We identify the gaps in the market, okay, and we try to bridge the skills between the fresh graduates and the skills needed in the job market in order to fulfill the needs for small and medium enterprises and startups operating in Egypt and the region for the time being. And many of our young men and women, they use the skills that they have picked during our capacity building programs, especially that we are a university after all, integrated with their own academic degrees and utilize this to land much better jobs either in Egypt or overseas. And we move from that to providing support to startups. So from individuals to startups, and our program Incubate provides support to startups and through the pre-incubation program, where we actually capture the ideas, like young people who have ideas, and we try to support them develop it into a product or a service and start testing it. And even the more advanced ones who have a prototype and are about to start a company, we support them through our incubation program in starting their companies and through the legal company registration, capacity building for them, and pushing them until they make their first sales. And we are also providing through our innovation and design technologies, or R&D tech, our research and innovation services to startups and small and medium enterprises. And through that, we provide product development, reverse engineering, re-engineering, technical support, design for manufacturability, aesthetics design, user interface, user experience, and so on. So we really delve into the technical part of the product development. And I think doing that, we're practically one of a kind in the Egyptian market to provide such services, all the way from the look and feel of the product up till supporting those startups in manufacturing their first batch through accessing our facilities. And then what about the companies that have been around for quite some time, either startups or small and medium enterprises who have actually been providing a product or a service in the market? We try to help them become more competitive through our program Compete. And in that, we have the accelerator to support startups land investments, or the growth support programs, where we support SMEs in industrial sectors through providing them with capacity building in export, trade finance, marketing, product development, and quality in order to raise the competitiveness of such companies. And so far, we've worked in a multitude of industries. So we've covered the engineering industries, furniture, dairy, plastics, chemicals, and most recently, we started ready-made garments, designing customized programs. And since we are heavily supported by the banking sector and especially the Central Bank of Egypt, we have helped design the business development service hubs, which are units that are being operated by banks, and they provide non-financial services to small and medium enterprises to enable these SMEs access finance, understand what financial products can be most suitable for them, or even help them with their paperwork and establishing or doing the company registration and the manufacturing license registration. And if we look at our services, trying to map it across the life cycle of an enterprise, so we find that the BDS service and the talent development can hone the idea, help hone the idea, whereas the product pre-incubation services, also talent development and product development, help across the proof of concept part, the early stage startups. And for the late stage startups, we are doing a lot of work related to accelerating the business and helping them with the product up till they become a global competitor, where we help them through the BDS services access more finance to expand their businesses, also do a lot more talent development to support them, and try to help them with enhancing their products, their quality, and compliance with international markets. And we do focus on key strategic sectors. Again, we align with strategic national and international players, and this is where the funding comes in place. So our program are heavily designed to satisfy the objectives of our funding agencies, be it the Ministry of Planning and Economic Development, who have a mandate to support entrepreneurship in Egypt, or Micro, Small, and Medium Enterprise Development Agency, who are very much interested in supporting deepening of local manufacturing and supporting startups through banks. And each bank would have their own sectors and their own value chains that they're very much interested in. So some banks, for instance, would be interested in understanding more about the furniture value chain. And for that, we design programs for companies operating in that. Some banks are interested in software and availing digital transformation services to the SMEs that they're serving. And accordingly, they have been sponsoring our Launch SaaS, which is software incubator. Some banks are interested in supporting their SMEs with export, and so they have been sponsoring the export associated activities that we're offering. Input that we have to put in our funding request is how we align with the bank's strategic interests, be it a bank or a government agency, okay, and how we together co-design programs to serve the specific value chains or industrial sectors that the banks are more interested in learning about and supporting. And we do involve the banks in the capacity building programs. As the banks, they teach courses like trade finance, how to collect your money as an exporter, how to fund your operations through different financial products, and so on. And with respect to technology, after all, we're a very innovative and research-oriented university. So what we have been doing is mapping the technology readiness level of the innovations that we are supporting. And for each technology readiness level, there is a specific service that is being provided. So for instance, talent development and capacity building works across the board. Whereas in the early stage of technology readiness level, we are concentrating on the knowledge development and developing a prototype. As the technology readiness level expands and becomes more advanced, we are looking into the product market fit. We're looking into the IP protection, designing for supply chain and operations. And we go that for the idea of design for manufacturability, so that the technology being developed, we can understand how is it that we can scale it up. And as again, the technology readiness level expands from 7 to 9, we're looking into more business development, acquiring more funding, access to finance, more certifications and approval in order to support being competitive in local and international markets. Tooling development and supporting these the companies in mass production through helping them in design for manufacturability and designing and producing dies for mass production. So our offering differs according to the readiness level of the technology or the innovation that we're supporting. And having worked across the whole spectrum, we have managed to create our framework to support a university become entrepreneurial, which we're happy to share with other universities. So the framework, how is it we studied, how we did it? We studied from the research or the literature, and this is part of our entrepreneurial research at the university. How is it that entrepreneurial universities are operating? We managed to have case studies from Europe and from the US and try to deploy it to our own region. And from that, we came up with our own framework, the framework that very much is interested in having an organizational commitment with the university administration and the top management, understanding the concepts of being an entrepreneurial university and heavily supporting it and spreading the culture. Also, this has to be translated into the resources and infrastructure. So basically, the university administration should, what we say, put their money where their mouth is. If we're claiming to be entrepreneurial, then we also have to avail funding, seed funding for the entrepreneurial activities in the university, and support the university the team working in acquiring funds through hiring and appointing the correct caliber, and having a rewarding mechanism which would actually be fitting to the pay scale that these calibers would expect to receive outside the university. Working on staff development, availing the physical and digital infrastructure, be it space, lab for prototyping, or the necessary software for the operation. Also spreading an entrepreneurial culture and education and research. So having accepting entrepreneurship as part of the academic degrees, as a minor, as part of, and embedding these skills and competencies within the educational activity at the university. And then having the specific activities that are directed towards supporting entrepreneurship, be it pre-incubation services, incubation, availing funding and investment, so designing funding mechanisms for startups. And I love the 10-10-10-10 that you have been talking about, and I'm very much going to share it also with my university. So the learning here is going so much both ways. I'm very much learning from what you guys are talking about. Also, the idea of networking and access to markets, and in that it's not only trying to bridge or connect these startups with SMEs and with corporations, but trying to make changes to the policies at the country in order to make space for government procurement, in order to accept the products coming from the innovators. And then there's the idea of having an industry orientation. Okay, so as has been said by Ms. Sarah, that there is the idea the industry is very much interested in solutions. They're not interested in just funding research. And this is what a university needs to be aware of. Okay, so there has to be a dialogue with the industry, being aware of what exactly the industry needs. So yes, as a university, we need to be having basic research, and that's what we apply to the government for, but also we need to have collaborative research with the industry in order to be generating extra funding to fund our activities at the university, and at the same time to have a continuous linkage with the industry, understanding the developments that are happening there. And then last but not least, for a university to be entrepreneurial, it needs to do the impact measurement so as to have continuous improvement of its activities. Okay, so just running through what we have done at the university in 5 years, we have been supporting students throughout the years. So we've worked with about capacity building of 13,000 students. We've supported about 300 startups and teams in terms of availing capacity building, funding, and prototyping support. We have developed 170 new products or new product development projects in collaboration with the industry and with startups. We have been working with small and medium enterprises a lot. And in that sense, we have worked with about 700 SMEs, either having specific capacity building programs for these SMEs or identifying what programs do the SMEs need, be it quality, die design and manufacturing, and or machining, or software, and so on. Again, the youth are very important. They are the fuel for innovation. So it's not only the training of 13,000 youth, but also we've been supporting startups that have been providing placement and recruitment for these young people. And out of them, there are 6,000 women that we have managed to support. And we've spread our activities to 4 Egyptian universities, where we've supported them in terms of having their own innovation support services, or supported their incubators by providing technical support. And we've been very happy to share our expertise globally. So we've been having visitors from all over the globe. We've had from Ghana, from Cambodia, Palestine, Sudan, Libya, just to name a few. And here are some of our success stories. So for instance, Egyptian pounds worth of sales, mainly to Europe. Okay, they're producing batteries, and they've won the Export Council Award for automotive spare parts. Another one of our startups, Konix AI, they've managed to acquire $1.3 million investment during the past year. We've had the digital extension services. This is a project that we had run to support farmers through knowledge sharing and access to finance. And our platform had received 95,000 visitors during the past couple of years. One of our startups, Vase Farmgate, now this is a research spin-off by which they are offering farms that they're able to predict the yield, so you do yield estimation, identify the water usage, and they've been operating in Africa and received $200,000 as an investment from the US. Aerial imaging for mega scale. Another one of our startups, Neotech, these are working on supporting the transformation of Egyptian industry, not to Industry 4.0, but I would say to Industry 3.5, through the upgrade of manufacturing infrastructure and having IoT systems to control the manufacturing and do the monitoring for the quality and for predictive maintenance. And one other fintech startup that we've had, Fawatira, these have been providing payment gateways to enable more digitization for online and e-commerce, as well as linking the online businesses and other types of businesses to the automated taxing invoicing system in Egypt in order to help with the digital transformation of Egyptian companies. So basically, these were some of the examples that we've had. I'll be very happy to receive your questions, and thank you very much for listening.
Thank you so very much. I mean, that is wonderful. So we will just have a tweak of the program and bring in right on the moderator so that she can take us a bit further and drive us through to the panel section. And we have our moderator to be the West Africa's first certified strategic communication and management professional. I will quickly just introduce her, and then she will take the podium so that we can take this while it's really hot. So she's a global product owner at Shell Netherlands, director of energy communications and related sector at ProAlicoms Limited. And she's also a 2022 recipient of Nigeria's Rising Woman in Energy Award. In 2021, Akwa Ibom State University Geoscience Leadership Award of Excellence. She's had her postgraduate degrees in energy and sustainability from the University of Cumbria in the United Kingdom. She's also had a leadership and entrepreneurship degree from China, Europe, business analytics, economics and accounting from the Harvard Business School in Boston, USA. She currently sits on the board of Women in Maritime and Energy Awards, and she remains a seasoned multi-sectorial industry speaker and a firm believer in Jesus. She's happily married to Kunle Afolayan, and together they have two amazing children. Let's put our hands together, ladies and gentlemen, as we welcome the moderator for this session, West Africa's first certified strategic communication management professional, Tubosun Afolayan, to take it up from here. Thank you so very much. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you very much, Tombori, and thank you. I was interested in why you were making the emphasis on the firm believer of Jesus. I like that. Thank you so much. But it's really a pleasure to be here. Before I go in to introduce our panel, I just want to mention to Dr. Iba that maybe now should change the name to Pan-African University. You know, hearing that you've supported 4 other universities across Cambodia, Ghana, Libya, you know, it should stop being now, right? It should start being Pan-Africa. So maybe that's something you should consider. But thank you. We have so many questions ready. Right, and I have a couple of recap to make, but outstanding presentation around organizational commitments within the university and the academic environment. This is what Triple Helix initiative is all about, being able to infuse together the academia that provides the people and then the industry that really manages the processes. How do we bridge that gap? And that's what today is about. And I'm going to be introducing our highly esteemed panel in no particular order. So I'm going to first introduce Professor Dickson Andala. So I'm not going to go through all of his profile. You can read it as it is on the screen, but I would just like to mention here that Professor Dickson is the Chief Executive Officer at the National Research Fund in Kenya, which is an equivalent of, I would say, maybe an NCDMB in Nigeria. So we are looking at the government, the policy area, how are this policy enacted to ensure that there is social economic improvements from the university to the industry, and also how people's life are shaped. So we'll go to the next person. We have Flora. Flora here is the director of Ecotech Limited in Tanzania. When we're having the pre-connect and we spoke about Flora, we noticed an uncanny sense of humility, you know, in all that she has done. So Flora has worked with natural research and innovation institutions for a long time. She's headed the university department, so she's bringing in all our academic expertise into here. And she was a director for life sciences at one of Tanzania's innovation think tank. So thank you and welcome, Flora. Good to see you. So let's go to Prof. Prof. Ibino is the Vice Chancellor, Summit University of in Kwara State. Prof is a Acado entrepreneur. He's bringing in, so he's not just speaking to us from the academic perspective, he's an entrepreneur in himself, and he has held several academic and research awards from various institutions. He has led his school, even though it's relatively new, across understanding the value chain of entrepreneurship, building industry processes, and also having the foundation, like Dr. Iba said, the space for us to be able to co-create venture labs as they become important in the present and in the new future that we are going into. And it is on that note that I would like to open up our panel session. Thank you so much. If you will please, Tombari, spotlight our panel and the keynote speaker for our audience to see. Everyone heard when Dr. Iba was talking, yeah, and she mentioned a lot of facts. You know, it's different to be theoretical, which our academic community is a bit known for. But here she mentioned the theory, the thinking that went into it, and now the facts, the figures that substantiate all that she has done. And just to remind us, how are entrepreneurs being groomed in the university and the academic environment? This is a test case. It's a proven case. So beyond Triple Helix having this innovation, we have now university providing a proven case study that this works. And maybe we don't even have to wait till 10 years. So if now university in 4 years have done 13,000 youths, 170 new products, what is remaining in my head is really the 10% equity in top companies, really. So we're already moving that envelope. So we're nearly there. And if I then think about how can we move this funnel? So we have this large number. Are they solving current day problem? Are they solving infrastructural problem? Are they fit for now and are they fit for future? And this is what the panels will be, establishing today. Proven case studies from Summit University to Flora, sharing our experiences, building ecosystem. Beyond building ecosystem, do we have the capacity and the know-how, and how are we filling the gap? And then we'll have Professor Andala telling us from the government, the policy-making perspective, how does all this speak together? So a very warm welcome to you. I'm going to be looking at the chat for questions, but I have of questions already that I will be sharing. If you do have questions, please feel free, put it in the chat. If you have a specific member of the panel that you would like for them to mention, to answer the question, you can put their name in brackets and we'll take it from there. So my first question is the very difficult one, or maybe the easy one. Is the easy one. So I'm going to start with Dr. Iba because she really opened up the same. You've talked about industrialization, innovation, academia, but what would you say Africa as a nation, because you now have experience across Libya, Cambodia, Ghana, Egypt, how would you say the African nation can balance this goal with the limited resources that we have?
One very important thing that we as nations who still have a way to go when it comes to development is it's very important to prioritize. Okay, so prioritization is key towards, because here in Egypt, for instance, we're spending a lot on infrastructure and a lot on developmental projects, but it is also putting a heavy burden with respect to the funding that is available. So it's very important that we do the prioritization. And then there is the idea of innovation, or what we'd call the technological innovation disruption. And it's the idea of that maybe at certain points, there can be innovative technologies that can solve age-old developmental problems. Now, if we direct some of the government spending that goes towards road or infrastructure projects towards being put for challenges to solve and pilot the solutions, then maybe we can have homegrown solutions that we can work with. And I mean, the idea of M-Pesa, for instance, with the financial inclusion. Are you aware that the M-Pesa, which started in Africa, is being taught across the globe as an example of how homegrown solutions have even leapfrogged the African nations towards financial inclusion more than the West in with respect to mobile money? So this, as an example, could be, you know, it can be give us some hope towards solving our homegrown problems, but we have to believe in our capabilities. We have to avail part of our infrastructure funding should go towards productization infrastructure, where we pilot innovations, where we pilot solutions and try them towards solving our community's problems, be that in sewage, in roads, in new technologies for buildings, and so on and so forth. We have to believe in our capabilities, and we have to put funds. We spend huge funds on roads. Okay, how about part of this fund can go towards trying locally homegrown innovation and piloting them? So, and we're not the only ones who would be doing that. I mean, Germany is putting 10% of its local procurement, the government procurement, towards innovations that are generated by the startups and by the universities. So we have to believe in our capabilities and put part of the expenditure towards that. It will yield over the long run a spillover effect and a lot of infrastructure investment. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So prioritizing and really trusting even the ecosystem that we are building or have built is what I hear. And thanks for laying on that. So I'm going to move quickly to Flora. So, you know, when you started, Dr. Iba, you said, no, this is not an African problem. This is a general problem. And I'm keen to know from your experience, what role have you seen international partnership, collaboration play in enhancing these opportunities for African research, particularly for African research?
Thank you, and good evening to everyone, or good afternoon, wherever it's evening in my part of the world. It's a pleasure to be a part of this panel, just so that I say that up front. So I've been working for the last 5.5 years in the Southern African region, and what we were doing there was to try and leverage the economic bloc, SADC's strategy on building competitive businesses. So its industrialization strategy is really focused on building competitive businesses, and they have a segment on youth, and that's what we were looking at, early stage businesses and trying to build that. But we realized very quickly that one of the things that was a challenge is how African countries collaborate. Whilst the trade elements are driven by tax and supply and demand, when it comes to leveraging new products, services, and processes, which innovation is brings out, then you need to have a different approach. And so we were able to garner catalytic funding from the Ministry for Foreign Affairs of Finland. And one thing that comes out very quickly in the current stage of funding that you get from international partners is it is no longer aid. It is always now aid for trade. And so you've got to develop this win-win situation between yourselves and what the Finnish whichever the donor fund is providing. And so we had to develop strategies or understanding of what the landscape needs. And so speaks very closely to what Heba has really elaborately laid out for us. What is it that the market needs? What does the Finnish market need? What does the regional Southern African market need? And where are those synergies? And that's where you benefit in leveraging the collaborative opportunities. And I'll just give you examples of one of the things that come out quite clearly. One, it's got to be catalytic, something with quick wins. So within a short time span, results should be able to be seen. And so when you talk about what's coming out of research development takes a little bit of time. When it comes to the commercialization, market validation, that's where a lot of the international partners see value, because that's where you can start to see potential revenue generation and not at the development stage, which is where the bulk of the investment actually is needed. And this is why I was laughing to myself when Herbert spoke about the commitment that other governments make. I think all of us are aware that in Lagos in 1997, some of you were probably not born, that's where our government's committed to providing 3% of our GDPs. And I'll just challenge each and every one of us to go and see how much is your government really putting behind science, technology, and innovation that is going to now generate this opportunity that the international partnerships are looking at. And so I think that's one thing that we need to sort of rethink and see how we redesign that. The other thing is, when you look, and I think we've been speaking about this also with the colleagues, the panelists, is the funding opportunities really lies between what comes out of research and where pre-revenue is generated. So it's nice to see that the university in Egypt supports their entrepreneurs through that, or their academic entrepreneurs through that, because that's a big challenge that most African countries face. And most governments are risk averse to that. Likewise, international partnerships. So you need to build in these partnerships a pull for the partner to see how is this going to translate. And for that to happen, you need to have very good monitoring and evaluation mechanisms for your entrepreneurial journey or your innovator's journey, so that it is clearly, one can see that these are the ones that maybe will make it into the market and sell that narrative to your potential collaborators. And it's not just a basket of entrepreneurs that will get access to financing. And I think we're gradually getting into that area, because you see a lot of more statistics about innovators. You'll see a lot more stories coming out about potential successes or the good successes, the quick wins. I heard about the 200,000 wins. The attraction of foreign direct investment is another way that you can gauge how much innovators in Africa are being able to attract international financing. And if they can attract international financing, obviously it comes with partnerships of what you can access on, what you benefit from the whole collaboration. So I'm going to stop there and just let you go back to the conversation. I don't want to hog the whole discussion. I'm conscious of time.
Right. So sinking that in. Aid for trade. So it's no longer grants. It's no longer we're just investing in you because we like you. It is I'm investing with you because I have an economic or capitalism, if we can even put it like that, perspective to this business we are transacting, whether it's for the academic, whether it's for the people, whether it's for the nation. And then I like when you say the importance of scaling from idea to product. So nobody is going to, even angel investors are not going to, I mean, you actually see most of them not interested in your idea. Your idea is great, but they want you to test a proven product. So, and this leads to the next question to Professor Ibino. Now you've heard it. You've heard the fact that infrastructural demand is not so much of, I want to help universities, because we can claim that they are not for profits. Education is supposed to be not for profit. But here we have partners who we need to move the envelope forward for our academic entrepreneurs, saying, I want more from my collaboration beyond, just throwing money at your institution. So how do you, where you sit, see opportunities for collaborating with the industry based on these demands that they have, in order for you to leverage on the fundings that are available? And before you start, I'd just like to apologize. I forgot to, I just saw that Engineer Gali Jubril is representing Mr. Abdul Malik Alilu in the panel session. I forgot to introduce him earlier. My apologies, sir. We're happy to have you, and just get ready for my question. All right, so please go ahead, Prof.
Thanks a lot, the moderator, for that question. And let me also state categorically that it's my pleasure to be here today and listening to this discussion. Also to Labib for that wonderful keynote speech. And also to Flora, you have actually hit the nail on the head. So let me start by telling us that in the academic, most times we normally say academics, or what we know is the DYDX, and just publish, perish. No. Nowadays, we are not talking about acadopreneurship. Acadopreneurship simply means turning academic ideas into all those SMEs that we are talking about. That is moving away from grant to aid for trade. Aid for trade. That is, how are we going to turn all those papers, research from laboratory scale model to market ready prototype, or what we call MVP. MVP. So the first thing which we are presently doing in academics is to do what is called sensitization and change of paradigm. That is from just publishing to contributing to the development of our communities. When you look at the idea behind university, it is about contributing to the society, to the community, not just about publishing. So the first thing we are trying to do in academic, and especially in my university now, is to introduce the concept of acadopreneurship. We are not going to be coming to you to say, okay, grant. No, it's about fulfilling what I'm hearing today about the triple helix vision 10-10-10-10. So and after that is to now democratize the knowledge of acadopreneurship and infuse it into our curriculum, or in the as a university. Like now, when you study chemistry, it is not just about balancing that equation. It's about how do you convert that equation that you are looking at to product for the community. How do you solve the problem? And that's what we have been doing. And we have also introduced in the academic now, it's not just impartial, like what most of us used to know before now is final year project is in partial fulfillment for graduation or certificate. No, it's in partial fulfillment now for making our society a better place to live. And now it's no longer about calling it final year project. It's about starting 2-3 years so that you understand what is business model, business plan, and how you now convert your final year project into business plan or into a product. And it's not just about a student. We want history. We want 3 things happening. So it's not only you at your final year stage that you are going to be talking about that. You start with a team as from the time you are in 300 level in year 3 for a 5-year course, so that you form a team and you establish what is called cooperation, collaboration, and co-creation. Why most of the final year project doesn't list into product as of now is that we have to understand at times that 1 year period is too short for any product, any vibe to actually come into fruition. What if you start with a team from the time you are in your 3rd year in the university, and when you move the project and there is a succession plan along that line. So that is what acadopreneurship is all about. And it's also involved collaborating with the industry and the community that will be the end user. And now for the government, what we are campaigning for, okay, fine. When we start creating all these things about tax and the rest, how are we going to benefit so that the grant government you are giving us will be used for knowledge dissemination, knowledge application, and knowledge generation, which we are known for in the academic or in the university. So the tax will be used for knowledge generation and knowledge dissemination. But when you come in and the rest, we are going to convert it into what is called knowledge application, applying that knowledge to solve societal problems through the concept of acadopreneurship. So let me say that our universities, we are now migrating from just publishing into co-creation into MSMEs and into solving societal problems. It's not just DYDX. We must make use of DYDX to solve societal problems. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Prof. I totally agree with what you've said. And I even particularly like as subtle as changing these things on our certificates. It's now solving specific problem, starting them early from year one, building employability skills. So this is not even only about entrepreneurship. There's also the space of equipping them, starting early, forming teams, forming creative thinking and problem solving skills too. But I wanted to think about this question. So how is this monitored? Is this tested? Do you have a system in place beyond them, just giving you their ideas? Or you taking an example from the Nile University, how do you really vet these ideas? How do you suggest to them? And what's the place for the faculty as well? How are you equipping the current faculty? Because this is a paradigm shift from what education is about. So how are the new or the old or the current faculty, how they equipped to handle this change that you have talked about so elaborately? But before I want you to think about that, and I want to go back to Flora. I'm keen to know, so ACFTA has not worked. Except we want to deceive ourselves. ACFTA trading across Africa has not worked as much as we would like it to. There's been a lot of deliberation on it. It just looks like there is something stopping it. Has this been your experience as well? When we say overseas, over the sea, it can also be northern to southern. It can also be unlocking funds across Africa. Have you seen this thing also playing out where it's just difficult because of our peculiarity, our asset control, our border control, and all the financial regimes that I had to explain? I'd like you to please share that.
Okay, so I'll do that in my response. Allow me to use an example, a live example from a project that one of the support projects that we were working with, and they wanted to do something as simple as transferring 3D manufacturing knowledge, technology from Southern Africa to Botswana. And this is where the bottlenecks of innovative products, solutions, processes comes, is the understanding in our own nuanced regulatory system. So this was a healthcare product that they wanted to transfer the knowledge on, but the healthcare regulatory system in Botswana is far different, and despite being part of a regional bloc, there is very little in harmonization of how transfer of products happens. It has to be a finished product and not the transfer of that knowledge. And so very quickly we learned, and you spend a lot of money outside of the actual innovation and product development and capacity building, but you're trying to resolve now a regulatory or a tax problem that is quite honestly beyond the scope of the entrepreneur's desire, understanding, or even motivation to do. And so government, this is where platforms like the Triple Helix play a critical role in understanding how these things can work across borders. Because as much as you are promoting Triple Helix in Nigeria, it's not just Triple Helix for the Nigerian ecosystem. Entrepreneurs, researchers in Nigeria want to collaborate and scale their ideas beyond their borders. And so you need to build that beyond Nigeria approach. And so understanding at the ECOWAS level, at a SADC level, at COMESA level, how do you facilitate that transfer of products, of services, beyond just what is known traditional products? Because a lot of what's coming out of research, most cases, value-added, new, innovative products that have not gotten coded under your traditional tax systems. And so it's very difficult to package them. I'll give you another example. We scaled a product from Tanzania to Zambia. And what that product required is a nanofilter, filters water from rural areas. What it required was for the Zambian community to understand how do they then repackage this for small businesses that they would have on the street. In Tanzania, our health system allowed for that to happen because we already had some challenges that we saw this solution providing answers to. But in Zambia, whilst they were facing those challenges, their health standard system was not capacitated to be able to receive that product. So sometimes you limit access to certain innovation because of that. So there's this, and the after project trade agreement is suffering the same consequences that I've just explained. And more importantly for that is also translating the AFCFTA agreement into our own regional or national regulations. How are we domesticating it in the regional bloc, and secondly, at national level, to allow it to really facilitate that free flow of trade that we are envisioning with having this trade agreement. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, yes, it does. So adaptability, it's got to also be taught right from the product beginning. If you're going to scale, once you move away from idea stage, then the innovation has to come with adaptation. And this is where I bring in Prof. Andala. Prof is in charge of National Research Fund in Kenya, and I understand this is a national innovation, community hub. But beyond that, your experience would have been across government acceptability of the projects that are coming in. What has been your experience? How have you seen this play out when it comes to policy changes? It's looking like it's new technology, we are not used to it. Or what's the embrace for the ideas that are being generated across the academia, across the industry, into the society? What's been your experience? Prof, over to you. Can you hear us though, just to be sure? Okay, Tombari, can you confirm if Prof is in or not?
We're just trying to quickly confirm that.
Okay.
But let's go ahead, we'll get back to you.
I can share an experience from Tanzania from our funding. The agency that I worked for, where I was Director of Life Sciences, does exactly what Prof. Andala is doing in Kenya. So it's a counterpart agency. And basically, the role there is to mediate between what's coming out of academia and play that intermediary role between commercialization. And the challenges there are really at policy level, but also at the stage in which a lot of researchers want to leave their products. So getting those products out of research into the market space is a little bit of a challenge. But we have we have options for how we finance that. So we've got, in Tanzania at least, we've got funds for basic research. And then when you get to a level where you've got product development, there's another stage of research that you fly for, which is innovation funding. And it can be funding for scale, it can be funding for tech development. And in the universities, what we did is also, and I could hear this also from what Professor Heba was talking about, is that we have technology transfer offices built into our university systems to allow that further development and initial market validation. And then we worked very closely with the Business Registration Agency, which is our focal point for patenting and licensing, and developed with them the frameworks that would allow people to buy licenses from businesses. So as a researcher, if I don't want to continue the business and I want to let go of it, how do I benefit, or how does my organization benefit? Then I license out the product, and they're responsible then to promote that. So there are structures in place on paper. The implementation and the effectiveness of them is probably where we need a lot more backing and support. Yeah. So it takes time. Yeah. And I want to acknowledge that for Tanzania, we worked very closely with an agency in Nigeria called NOTAP. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but they're also responsible to do tech transfer. And we borrowed a lot from their model of how they commercialized products from the R&D sector. So just to show you that there is a level of collaboration. It is not all doom and gloom. There is quite a lot going on. It's just not enough because of the size of our continent and the needs of our people.
Unexpectedly slow, because again, the time from inception of all of these ideas to now is actually relatively short when you compare it to emerged or Western economies. Engineer Jubril, I'm bringing you up air now. If you're on, please let me know. I want to be sure before I ask my question. Is Engineer Jubril here?
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah, here,
Go
great.
ahead.
Thank you. So
yeah.
I'm keen to know, so from the NCDMB that has supported a lot of entrepreneurial initiative and even academia in Nigeria, how would you say your strategies have worked? And really, what are these landmines that people who want to unlock your funds should know about? We've talked about adaptability, we've talked about scalability. Are these the metrics that you also use, or there are other more that we need to know?
Okay, thank you, moderator. The sitting chairman of this webinar in person of Dr. Sarah, permit me to stand on existing protocol for this webinar. As you have asked this question, here in NCDMB, basically we do a lot this way because if you look, the main objective of even triple helix, let's start from that background of triple helix so that we can come down to NCDMB. It's all about accelerating, as you know, knowledge co-creation and improving collaboration mechanisms among different actors. That's like academia, industry, government, in the innovation ecosystem. And what we are doing is to make sure that we have end-to-end innovation lifecycle management, which when there is pain in the industry or the challenges of the industry, we collaborate. We started as a research, which we evolved from the industry. When we collaborate with sister agencies, started with such responsibility, then we evaluate, then we get to commercialization. And fortunately, your question around with what my director gave the people that attend this webinar as take home. So let me kindly share what he had for you so that you can be able to understand this question and our intervention in the area of commercialization, research and development, also in the area of innovation process. So now let me kindly share the slides with you, then go through it. I believe at the end of this, we'll get solution to this problem or to this question you have asked. Thank you. So now, this solution, as we have, you have asked earlier, that when you talk about having solution on this innovative effort, which most likely will emanate from this tripartite of tertiary institution, industry, government, and what have you. So it has to go down to a shift right to adopt a faculty initiative. This one will give you, from the source of talent that you are getting from the university or from any tertiary institution, coming down to industry, academia, collaboration, research will evolve from there. Then you see how business development consultancy will come from the government, from the point of government. So from there, you go down to what you have operating framework. So we created this governance in the from NCDMB so that we, as our major intervention in our quest to commercialize market-driven innovation and the researches. If you look at it, the framework has a governance. We have infrastructure development and equipment. There is learning and knowledge exchange. So if you look at it from the first block, there is physical building, which we provided. We have a fantastic center in NCDMB called Technology Innovation and Incubation Center, which provide a smooth transition spread for all the researchers to come down to the center to harness what they have as in idea and hypothesis, so that from what they have from that hypothesis, they turn it around to become a product and the services in the industry. We provide equipment to our Center of Excellencies. We have Center of Excellencies along the line of our thematic areas, which is another big intervention because we learned that basic researches need requirement before it come to this stage. Mostly in this facility, we turn around applied research, the one which has potentials. So then we provide teaching aids to institutions. We create enabling environments for people to come for competition and training in the center. And from there, you go to learning and knowledge exchange. if you look at it, we promote sabbatical program because lecturers from the universities, more especially from the Niger Delta region, come down to NCDMB, understand what we are doing, share ideas what's happening in the academia with us so that we can take first-hand intervention to them. Then exchange program for students, we promote all these kind of things through our intervention project. Then we research, we do research, development, and innovation. So what we do in the center, we accept submissions from academia, we turn it around, we process it through screening, and later on we pondered it from the on it, as in E, that's technology development. So from there it will go to the point of equity focused researches, which we work around that very space with Bank of Industries. Then we do curriculum review. In this regard, sponsor new curriculum. We do that. We give them all these privilege to come and discuss with NCDMB so that we can come up with a standard and a robust curriculum which will change the narration in the triple helix model. Then we do the same in the science, technology, engineering, and mathematics courses. We facilitate review of the curriculums from the scratch so that we can have what we want at the long run. So my director recommended or agreed that having or following this pattern, definitely from the triple helix to adopt a faculty initiatives down to operating framework has to do with governance along these blocks, will solve most of this problem we are facing in transforming ideas into product and services.
Thank you so much, Engineer Jubril. Thank you. I really like the adoptive faculty initiative, but not to belabor the points. I think now that we have a lot of representation from Nigerian universities here, it would just be nice if there's a link to be shared to for them to get on into this initiative, as you have said. It would be really great. Or maybe after the meeting, if that can be shared via the post-event communication, for them to just be sure of this process and how they can benefit from it.
Okay, thank you so much, my moderator in person of TA. Thank you so much. I thank you all.
Okay, sir, thank you. Good to see you. So I'm going to then go into the chats without wasting more time. We have few questions and I'm going to take it. The first one is, why do multinational companies in various sectors find it difficult to set up research and development centers in African countries? So juxtapose African universities, or why do they find it difficult to invest in the universities? Because those are now our research centers where they have significant operation. When we say multinational, I expect that these are international companies that are already domiciled in some part of Africa. So Flora, I would like you to speak to this. What's your experience working across this commercial sector, innovation, funding, and also building partnership?
Thank you, Tunbosun. And I think I put an answer, at least my opinion of my experience, what I've learned. I typed in the answer, just being conscious of the time, is mainly two things. If you speak from the side of manufacturing, there's the cost of R&D, and a lot of, at least the African countries that I've been in, with the exception of South Africa, don't do the primary production of the equipment that they use for manufacturing themselves. And so the cost of research becomes quite expensive when you want to develop new products. The tendency has been, for different reasons on the continent, but a lot of it is linked to the colonial approach, has been to just reverse engineer and then produce your products that you will sell mainly within the region. And the other thing is a non-science, technology, and innovation thing. Is really about trade and the quality and standards of the products that are being produced. Then when the new products that are coming out from our industries are limited in terms of how we can sell them or trade with them. So that's mainly the thing. There's a big difference in tech. When you talk about ICT products, when you talk about agricultural products, there's a lot more coming out from our industries, and for that matter, there's quite a substantive amount, I would say, investment in setting up R&D within the companies, and you can see that quite clearly. It's also cheaper to set up for those at least those two sectors. health, and the others become a bit more restrictive because these are more global, the products go globally, and then the quality and standards and the requirements on what you need to meet are what limit African products to access those markets. However, COVID has flipped that around, and I'm sure you're all aware when we came up with our own natural, the traditional or the natural herbs just boomed the African market scene, and now our products are going even abroad because they were very effective for COVID. So I think it is not a one-way street, but we are limited, quite honestly, by the fact, by trade and also by the ability to access these high-tech machinery, and the technology moves very, very quickly. So.
Thank you for that response. I have a question, and I don't want it to be question from question, but I'm thinking in a continent of so many people, right? Advancements in fintech will probably have the best. Don't you see an opportunity? And just think about this while I bring back Prof. Do you see an opportunity where we can do C2B investments? So this is me selling my products based on the numbers, because this is what the Chinese companies are also doing. They're selling products to make money. They are not necessarily seeking investments. Is there space for Africa to also use that as an opportunity to unlock funds than looking for the big funds? But just something for you to think about ahead. Prof, I asked a question before we went off screen. What are the checks and balances? What's the process to ensure that while we prepare our academia for this cross-pollination of ideas that translates to products, that translates to innovation, how do you ensure that the funnel is refilled with the right knowledge, the academia, the current ones, the old ones, the new ones that are coming, so that we don't end up in the situation we found ourselves? The students know a lot, but you then have a gap with the people who are teaching them. Just very briefly.
Okay, Jack, thanks a lot for that question, and I will be very mindful of time. First of all, Flora mentioned some initiative between African countries, and I'm happy to tell you that the first thing is our regulator, that is NUC, came up with what we call Core Curriculum Minimum Academic Standards, CCMAS, that have domesticated and democratized all this process that we have been mentioning. And again, part of what we are introducing include academic immersion program and industry immersion program, so that lecturers, we have opportunity to co-create with those in the industry. And those in the industry, we also have opportunity to immerse in academic affairs. That's why we have termed it AIP and IIP, Academic Immersion Program for industry experts and industry immersion program for academicians. So irrespective for being old or new, the knowledge will be there. And also, Flora mentioned NOTAP, that is National Office for Technology Acquisition and Promotion. That's another thing that we now have in almost all our universities in Nigeria. Let me cite Summit University of Akwara State. The whole idea emanated from the vision of the university. That is, our vision stands at developing innovations and inventions that will be changing the way we live in our communities, defend our nations, and work in Africa. When you look at this one, you will see that we are looking inward to solve the societal problem and to solve our community problem. Based on that, we now try to, based on what NUC have brought on board now, 30% of the curriculum must be localized to the institution, which means that you look at your institution, what you want to offer for the community or to the society, you now take that one into your curriculum. So knowledge generation will continue, irrespective of being an old one or new one. And again, we focus more on capacity development. Irrespective of your level and rest, there is what you call continuous learning, long life learning, which involves capacity development. And again, measuring through vision. We have KPIs that along the line must be achieved. So that's just summary of it in 2 minutes that we have put in place to ensure continuity, to ensure that it's not an issue of coming back to the old point. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Flora, over to you.
Thank you. So to your question, I think there's different platforms, and the AFCTA is one opportunity that we do have if we do it correctly, rightly. So it's in its early stages, and let's be honest with that. Let's give it time. We've just birthed the concept, and countries are they're readapting and redesigning themselves to be able to harness those opportunities. And I think all countries that have signed on to the agreement do recognize that there's a lot of potential for them to benefit. But another thing that we can do within our own space of government, academia, and the entrepreneurs is really work with the funding mechanisms, such as the one that our colleague Dr. Ndala is running in Kenya. We have similar platforms in all our countries, but one thing that we're missing is that regionality, or regional funding. And I know we have one in SADC that is starting to come up. The one that I worked with was only with 6 countries, although we leveraged the financing to go beyond, but we had an international partner. But we need to have some that are driven by our African governments. And so that commitment is important. Another layer is drawing in the private sector in terms of the angel investment and venture capital. Some ecosystems like South Africa, Egypt, Tunisia, they have those well developed. Other countries in Africa have potential. You've got individuals who have I don't want to call it disposable income, but the income that would be able to do that. However, they don't have capacity building. So one of the things that we have done also in Southern Africa is set up capacity building programs for angel investment, capacity building programs for people to go into the venture capital space, because sometimes you want to invest, but you're not sure how to navigate that space. And so that's also capacity building that is needed in our part of the world to benefit. And then there's actually a lot of money around. There's more money than our entrepreneurs need. Is being able to access it and utilize it for what they need. I think that's where the trick lies. I'll give you an example. The program that we supported, we would give grants of about 250,000 euros for 18 months. And out of the 26 regional projects that we funded, I think only 2 were able to utilize the money that was available for them. So it's a nuanced question when you talk about access to finance.
Yeah. So it's one way assessing the money is really being able to demonstrate capacity to utilize that fund. So I have a question for you here. I guess you can just type that. You mentioned the partnership with a Nigerian company. Someone wants to know what's the full meaning of Sonata.
I think Professor as I explained it on my behalf.
Yeah, all right. So, and then breaking the barriers between research, innovation, and entrepreneurship comes with a lot of data dependency. So we have National Data Statistics Nigeria, Bureau of Data. What has your experience been? And this is to Dr. Iba, this place of data. What and how can universities leverage on what already exists so that we are not just churning what already exists, right? So how do we leverage data to help our continuous process?
Data is very rich when it comes to the potential of what you can get out of data. And big part now that we're having the technology, we just need to have the architecture or engineering of how to utilize this technology towards data. One project, for instance, that we're having right now is related to agriculture in terms of optimizing or understanding the agriculture produced in Egypt to understand where the gaps are, and we integrate that with the banking sector in order to best develop financial products towards certain agricultural products to fill in the gaps that we currently have. So basically, it's not only data, it's about how the imagination of how to utilize data, how to access it, clean it, and then what to do with it over the long run to benefit for it. So as I said, like this use case was an example of using the data of agriculture and the gaps to develop financial products through the banking system. Another example that we have used was for a developmental impact, a product that we had designed at the university to serve the milk collection centers, where 85% of the milk produced in Egypt is produced by microscale farmers, and it usually comes with a big load of problems with respect to quality. So there was that system that we designed to do the testing. But it's not only about the testing, it's about understanding what are the key problems associated with the dairy industry in order to have a root solution for it. And at the same time, the data utilized can be used again with the banking sector to develop financial products and allow for the financial inclusion for those micro-scale farmers. Now that we have the data about their usage, about the cash flow that they're receiving, then they could be eligible for external excess funding or more funding for them to expand their operations. And we can understand the problems associated with them, with their milk production, in order to develop solutions for that. So these are some of the examples. The other example of data was the aerial imaging. That was a research spin-off that came out of the university, where a professor was doing aerial images for large-scale farms, and then he turned around and started selling this data and utilizing it with the big producers for potatoes, for instance, to give them solutions by which they can reduce the water consumption, and because Egypt is a water-stressed country. And so, I mean, now the companies can produce more at lesser, with investing lesser resources. So again, it's like the idea, the imagination of, yes, the data is out there and the technology we have is also there, but how to build a proper use case, this is something that we've been doing a lot recently.
Yeah, thank you. And I like, so what you've said, I was thinking about it in the dimension of academic, and this is why Professor Ibinu mentioned that for him as a vice chancellor, his first responsibility is innovating for his immediate community, because that's where it really starts from. So when you find problems, you start from your community, and in some instances, then you start thinking, how do I export this out and adapt it to what others need? Professor Ndala has now been finally able to join us, and I would like to yield the floor for him to share on what he had thought to speak to us about. I won't ask him a question, I'll just leave it open-ended for you, Prof. I'm keen to know, now that you are in a position for assessing and helping entrepreneurs to assess national funds, what has been the yardstick? What's been the controls? And what have you seen in very few minutes that we have? Just share your experience and your journey so far. But importantly, what's the take home? How can people unlock these funds for research and innovation? Over to you, Prof.
Thank you, moderator, and I'm glad to have joined, though in the midway. The discussion is very, very important, more specifically to African researchers. There are plenty of opportunities with regard to funding, and of course, we cannot afford to play in terms of individually or a silo mentality. In Kenya, more specifically, we've been working with our partners, and among them you had Victoria Ventures, who have come in strongly to support our innovators. And of course, what we ride on is we've got previously funded research that is at the edge of becoming now a product. Now, the Victoria Ventures will pick it up, nurture it, and of course, they should be able to, we've seen several of them now becoming fully commercialized. More specifically to the questions that you've raised in regard to my position in elevating young scientists or researchers in Africa, we have a forum called Science Granting Councils Initiative. And since this Science Granting Councils Initiative, I know Nigeria have made attempts to join the Science Granting Council Initiative. It brings together 36 countries who share experiences in matters of science, technology, and innovation. So we borrow from each other, of course, good practices. We leverage on funding which we attract as a group of the SGCI. In Kenya, we shall be hosting the SGCI in November 13th to 17th, and I'll be expecting our partners, key scientists and the leaders from Nigeria who are focused on promoting science, technology, and innovation to be present. Otherwise, I know due to constraints in time, I'll maybe wish to know if there are any specific questions I can be able to respond to.
Thanks for mentioning that. So when we were talking among the panelists, we found three main sources of fund. One is the National Fund, example of the NCDMB, example of the ones you heard. The other one would also be the cross-national funds, which is where the numbers are, and being able to export and import ideas, funds, aid for trade, beyond looking to the Western world, starting with Africa. And then the third, Flora didn't want to call the name, but I do a lot of idle funds and people don't know what to do with them, but they are not convinced that the ideas are right for their funds. So angel investors, they say when you start a business, you look for friend, fool, and foes. So again, how do you leverage these three Fs to get funding for your investment? Capacity is important, it's missing, but in all of this, there is a question on the panel that I think it's why we are here. What are the next steps for our academic institutions, for our capacity building think tank, innovation or incubation state, people will call venture labs? How do we move this conversation? I've heard a lot, we've been doing a lot of things, but for academics or academia community who are new to this idea, right? They will be our guinea pig. What would you say in 3 steps? And this is how I like us to, wrap this up. In 3 clear steps, how would you, as a speaker here and expert in this field, posit that journey should be commenced? And I'll start with Flora, we'll go to Prof. Ibidun, we'll go to Dr. Eva, finish with Dr. Andela, then I will invite Mr. Alilu to come and finalize this conversation for us. Please go ahead.
Okay, so I'm going to share, my first step would be to borrow from what we had a Commonwealth Technology Platform meeting in Tanzania in 2014, quite a while ago, and we were talking to Malaysia. And the Prime Minister of Malaysia said to my president at the time, because he was asking, how do I really make this country move forward and how do I benefit from science, technology, and innovation? And he said, you know what, you've got a pile of innovative creations, ideas, products, services that are sitting in the shelves of your universities. Put those to public procurement. Put those to public procurement. And I think it was mentioned also in this discussion today, public procurement to drive things. So I would say on the government side, then make that accessible. There's countries like South Africa, they've capitalized on their Black empowerment policy to make sure that they provide financing and access for businesses at that level. But our science, technology, and innovation policies, some of them nuance and cater for that. And that would be my second step. That's the move from government. Third is for private sector to be allowed to engage in this space, because as much as government continues to ask private sector to participate, private sector is very risk averse. So you've got to create tax incentives for private sector to come into the space to test, try, and uptake these products. Otherwise, private sector will always wait until a product is ready for commercialization for them to engage and put their money behind it. So for me, those would be the 3.
I will recommend these 3 steps, and that's what we have been using in some of our universities. Number 1, curriculum 4.0. That is new set of curriculum that address Industry 4.0 technology needs and the rest. We cannot be in industry, we cannot be under the 4th industrial revolution and our curriculum or curricula is still for 3rd or 2nd industrial revolution. So just like the NUC, the regulator of universities in Nigeria, have done, to develop a new set of curricula that are for Industry 4.0, because now we also talk about Community 4.0, everything 4.0. So our curriculum must also be that. That's the first step, because That's what you drive to do. That's what you use to change, to drive the community, to drive innovation, to drive knowledge and the rest. Number 2 is synergy between industry and academia. So that's where we have introduced what is called industry immersion program and academic immersion program, with government playing a moderating role. Again, academic immersion program that we must give incentive and we must allow those industry experts to also teach our students, to share knowledge, to collaborate with our lecturers and students. What we used to know under the curriculum 3.0 or the whole curriculum is that only student goes to the industry for internship. Now, our lecturers must also collaborate. When they go there, is to go and see what are the needs of those people in the industry. They share their idea, and they will be able to move their product or their research or their design from laboratory scale model to market-ready prototype. So synergy between academia, industry to be midwife or supported by the government. That is the second step. And the third step is that we set achievable timeline and goal, KPI, because there must be key performance indicator along the. It's not just going there. We have tried that close, or we have moved that way before, but now it must be outcome-based, output-based, output-driven, and it's not just about impartial fulfillment for graduation, but impartial fulfillment for making our society a better place. It's part of the KPI. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Iba, but I'd like to crave the indulgence of everyone on this call. We will run 10 minutes past the hour. Please, we're wrapping up. We're just taking key actions. Stay with us. 10 minutes past the hour, we'll be shut down. Thank you.
Well, I'd like to reiterate on the regulatory part. Yes, so we have to look when we come to the regulation or the policy, but what policies are there in place to support being innovative? One of these policies, again, is public procurement. Another policy would be innovation vouchers to support collaborative research between the industry and the universities, with the idea of having demand side innovation. So countries should look at, okay, what sort of technologies are we importing? What is it that we're lacking into? Where do we want to expand further in our know-how and create demand-based incentives to help industry and university collaborate on research. Third part, definitely tax incentives for innovation is something that we need, and we're not seeing it here in our countries. I mean, we're not seeing it here in Egypt, unfortunately. So this is for the regulatory part. Now, another part would be in the infrastructure or the support part in terms of supporting the research spin-off from the university. Now, academicians, by virtue of design, very few of them would actually, we do have examples of successful spin-offs at the university, but they're very few, because academicians, yes, I'm very much inclined to work on my technology, but to productize it and to turn it into a company and to take it further, sometimes it could be licensed off, or sometimes the industry is not ready enough to take it. And this where we're looking into the new different concept of what we call venture studios, where the university would have the team that will be working on productizing the technology or the innovations coming out of research, putting a lot of research and use cases to it in order to help launch it. And then there is the whole structure of ownership and attracting investment. So investors would be more prone to put money where they are finding that there is a whole dedicated team to productizing and commercializing a product, rather than just researchers who are very much in love with the science, but not enough into the business part. So, I mean, this is like from the top of my head, like the upcoming steps that we really need to be pushing for at one end, the commercialization of technologies, but at the other end, the regulatory infrastructure. Also, by the way, for the regulatory infrastructure, We need to visit our standards and codes. Okay, some of our codes are over designed. I'm talking about building codes. I'm talking about codes relating to healthcare. I mean, it doesn't help to have an extremely stringent code when we have people who are homeless or who are dying because of lack of medical help. So we need to have more flexible codes to allow for acquiring or utilizing our own homegrown technologies and using it in the market. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Engineer Jubril, you want to share your thoughts, please?
Yes, thank you, my moderator. I think this recapping is key because from what Prof said and our key speaker, Dr. Hebra, they made justice to what is on ground now relating to this triple helix. From my own end, I look at having resilience from the researchers should play a notable role in changing the paradigm, because lack of resilience from the angle really make difference, because what we are seeing now is if we can be able to change our mindset with research and development or commercialization of research efforts, I believe the whole thing will change and we'll get it right. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Stay in power, the long road. And on that note, I would like to invite Mr. Lily to share his remark, and then I'll just layer this and close this session so we can go back to the meeting. Over to you, Chairman, Triple Helix, Nigeria.
Thank you. Thank you very well to our moderator for holding forth. Once again, let me apologize for not being able to join early. I had a high-level meeting that I couldn't excuse myself, and I'm sure you all understand and pardon me. But after joining, I think I must reassure ourselves that we took the right decision by picking this very important topic of unlocking funding opportunities for research and innovation in Africa. And from the very, very qualitative contributions from Eba and other speakers, it is very clear that the funding is an enabler, but there are other levers that we must put together. And this was well encapsulated in the 3 points agenda that has been set in the review session. I see a culture of research as very, very fundamental to drive research. That is, people must be interested in carrying out research, and businesses must also be able to see R&D as part of their business model so that they can create the necessary funding mechanism and also the outreach to drive research. That's one major takeaway from what has been discussed. I also see the importance of establishing systems to drive research. Research does not operate in a vacuum, so the academia, the institutions of learning, but beyond that, even those that will provide the patents, those that will qualify research for market acceptability has also been well highlighted in terms of the need to develop the right research and development ecosystem. And I think that's a major takeaway for us. Then the issue of funding also, funding must be targeted as market-driven research. So the emphasis on commercialization by the lead speaker and other contributors speaks to the fact that there has to be a very clear criteria for funding research. It must be targeted at meeting the needs of the society, meeting operational needs, and also ensuring that the outcome and the output of research is tending towards improving existing processes or even developing new solutions. So that is very clear. So when we talk about funding, we're actually speaking to the right application of funding and the right mobilization for funding. And that has to do with being able to inculcate the right culture and the right systems. Very important perspective there. Then the emphasis on collaboration was also well amplified. And that is the whole essence of Triple Helix. As governments, we need to provide the right policies to drive research and create the incentives for people to not only do research, but benefit from outcomes of research. We must protect intellectual property through enabling laws. And then we must also ensure that we have the right regulation that allows outcomes of research to be seamlessly approved for deployment in the marketplace. That is our role as government. We must also work with the industry because they are the users of research. So in terms of even developing the right products, you need to engage the industry to understand their needs. The industry has to provide the space for you to test your products, the prototypes, and also the field trials. And they are the ones that will accept the products at the end of the day. So that relationship has to be structured in a manner that the researchers, the innovators, do not have to struggle to get the needs of the industry, but also to use government, a platform to get their products certified for deployment. And the third leg is the researchers, the academia, making sure that we create the right support structures to deepen the capability and the quality of researchers, and also the number of researchers that we have. And then also making sure that they have this collaboration framework across borders. Research is an international business, so they should be able to leverage the capabilities of other institutions so that research projects can be co-created and co-executed. So that is also a very important lever, and it's a major takeaway for us at Triple Helix to ensure that we sustain this synergy across the three different players of research. Now, the issue of entrepreneurship spirit and entrepreneurship university has also been well amplified, and that is why we have to work very closely with the academic institutions to ensure that that culture is created, because they are the foundation upon which most of this research will be built, developed, and eventually deployed for industry use. So once again, I want to thank all the very wonderful speakers, panelists for doing justice.
I don't want you to thank us yet. Don't thank us yet. We have to, for you to elaborately thank us. I like that we ended on this note. Thank you, Mr. Liu, for those very cogent points, layering on the aspect of supporting from the government perspective, building proper regulatory environment, and also even down to the academia. How do we even this funnel to connect them? But I'd like to end on this note so that we can end properly this panel session. While we were talking at the pre-connect, one of the things that really was clear to all of us on this panel was the importance of this conversation. And it was around, this is not so much of just building publish to perish. I like that. It is publish for public procurement. It is publishing for public procurement. It is ensuring that whatever that our knowledge gap is exposing leads to research. This research must then build on industrialization. Industrialization would be empowered by innovation. Innovation will propel infrastructure. And at the end of all of this, it is really social economic growth and development, which tells back to the life of the people, the life of us, and the life of our entirety as we go along. So it's on that note, I'd like to say thank you. I hope you had a good time. The key takeaway will be shared in the communique as I heard, but it's been a pleasure being here. Thank you so much, Dr. Iba. Thank you, Prof. I mean, maybe I should add Prof and Doctor to my name now after I've finished this, but thank you, amazing session. I'll hand over back to Engineer Lilu to close the session, and thank you, and have a wonderful evening.
Okay, I wanted to save us time, but You're the moderator, so you're in charge. Okay. So once again, thank you, Heba, Doctor. Very good job. Thank you, Dr. Sarah, for holding forth for me. And I'm sure you guys didn't miss much. Our able panelists, thank you very much for doing justice. We're very well appreciative of the fact that even Vice Chancellor's high-ranking academic staff able to join us. We thank you very much immensely. Other panelists, thank you. Those that asked questions, we take this feedback and contributions very seriously. And like the moderator rightly mentioned, we'll process them accordingly. We'll take them as action points. They form major foundation pillars in our strategic roadmap as Triple Helix Nigeria chapter. Thank you very much, and we look forward to a new session the next month. And I want to thank the Secretariat for the quality of webinar that has been hosted. God bless.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And on that note, still standing on all the existing protocols, we want to quickly welcome and invite the Vice President's Innovation, Triple Helix Nigeria, for the closing remarks, and then we will call it a wrap at that point. Thank you so much. Over to you, Mr. Thanger.
All right, thank you so much. I think the President has given a closing remark. I'll make it very short, so we can actually just have 2 minutes for us to respect the time. Thank you so much. Thank you all. Thank you, Dr. Heba. It was exciting when you made this presentation. It was good to have you here. Well, thank you so much. Thank you, Tubosun. Nice moderation. You know so much about this, so really learned a lot from you. And then, of course, our President, who actually managed to make it here. Thank you. Just to thank also Professor Andala. I know how choked he was today. He was also able to make it here. And then Flora from Tanzania, we met last year in the Triple Helix conference in Florence. And then we've been trying to work together in the African region to drive Triple Helix in Africa. So I'll say thank you to her. And of course, the Vice Chancellor, Professor Ibinu. It's actually really exciting when I see what they are doing in their university. I really like what they are doing. I just look at the curriculum, looking at artificial intelligence and digital engineering as a faculty, and looking at innovation and computing technology as a faculty. I believe that we'll have the next Nile University, EGP, and Summit University. Thank you so much for connecting. And also like to thank our sponsors, Nigerian Universities Commission. Thank you for the support. For NCDMB, thank you for supporting this event. And also Cypher Crescent, thank you for supporting this event. In our usual tradition, we'll continue the next webinar. It's going to be on how do we actually put on policies, the main policy that you need to actually unlock the funding that we need to drive innovation in Africa. Thank you all.